Hey, I'm Steve Northcutt. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to show you how we lay out our floor or our walls. We're going to take you through that step by step, and then how we frame our walls. So we're going to go through and we're going to snap a line across. I'm going to do this side first. It's the longest side, so I'm going to come in 3.5 on each side, snap a line across there, and then actually it looks like Ethan's already done that. And then we'll square off of that, and then we'll lay out the walls. So we'll get started. So on this one, we're actually came in 4 inches. That way the sheathing is flush with the bandboard. On these smaller houses, these little spec houses, we don't run the sheathing past, just to save money. The builder didn't want to spend the money on the OSB. The only reason that you would go past is to give it a better air, to seal it up better, and to tie it into the floor system better. That's the only reason you should do it. And so to save on money, save on labor, we just come in 4 inches. That way the sheathing is flush with the outside of the bandboard. And so a majority of the builders would rather just do it this way versus spending the money for the extra material and the labor to go all the way down past it. And so that's what we'll do. Now on this other side, we'll come in 3.5 because it's got the garage wall, and we had to slide all those studs in 1/2 inch on that bottom plate, and I don't like that look, so we'll go with 3.5 on that side. So now we got our line snapped at 4 inches. We'll get a square line off of that, and then we'll go from there. So I'm just gonna pick a random spot, and then what I'm gonna do is, I have a 35-foot tape, and so I'm gonna measure 24'9" this way, 24'9" that way, and then the diagonal is 35 foot exactly. Ethan, you wanna hold me over here on that mark that I just made? So 24'9", I'll put a mark right here. You hold me there? Go with one closest that way. All right, hold me there. Now what I'll do is I'll make a kind of an arc. That way I kind of know, that way I kind of get. Okay, over there is the mark that's closest to you. All right, and then I will go 35 feet. Okay. And now we're going to snap a line at the intersection of these two arcs. So if you remember in geometry class, when you had your little, when you make your marks and all that, so we're gonna just go through the center of that. Hold on, Tex. Yeah, we were good. You got lucky. Okay. So now I've got a square line, so I can come in here and measure in 4 inches, measure from that line, and measure the same thing over here, and then I got a reference point. I've got some people call it a control line. Okay, I'm on that line. Okay, so I've got 13, 9 7/8. It's not very dark. Okay. $16, 9 1/2. $16, 9 1/2. Okay. So what we'll do is I'll go around. I'll get the X here all the way around, and then we'll lay the walls out. What?
It's getting darker.
I want to see, I gotta look at the plan to see if it goes, see how far it goes here. Angel has the plan, and he's not here yet. All right. So this wall goes, yeah, this wall is going to continue about halfway down. Okay. $11.1, man, it's tiny. 11'1". Here somewhere. 11'1". Oh my goodness. Okay. Wait. You weren't.
This one needs more chocolate than this. The black chuck's starting to rub off.
Okay, let's go ahead and get the front up here.
I always kind of like mixing the red and blue.
There's a nail sticking up right there. Hold me on the control line. .26 and 11/16. .26. Let's go look at that again. I want to make sure. Okay. Okay, I'm actually off slightly. Let's go. Just move it out a half. So, y'all did what you're not supposed to do. You nailed the sheathing, the flooring. You're supposed to not nail the.
You waited.
Huh?
Didn't nail it. Cut it off and
No, you gotta chuck your lines first. That way you can. Because now I gotta move that joist. I gotta square that up. All right, hold me. That line again. My tape's not long enough, so I'm gonna make another mark here. Okay, hold me up here. All right, 15.5. Okay, I got a mark right there. I just about kicked that off just because. Okay. Oh, right in the water. We gotta get this wall here. 3.5. 10 5/8. Ten 5/8. Okay. Are you sure you're holding me right? Okay. That's off a little bit. So the excavator is supposed to be here today to fill our garage and the porches. He did the other one yesterday. Did y'all mark where those doubles were? Ethan?
No.
Yeah, there's one right there. Okay. So it should be 28'2" to the center of that wall. Let's make sure I did this right. My tape got wet. Now it's
From the wall?
from the outside. Put 3.5 on the line. 28'2". Okay. So
So I'm 28.2 to the center, so I'm gonna go 1 3/4 each way
from my wall. It comes up to right here somewhere.
28'2", 1 3/4 back, 1 3/4 more. Can't even. Okay.
So he made this house 5 foot longer by accident. He misread the measurements. So this house is 5 foot bigger than that one.
Getting a deal, right?
Yeah. So I'm adding 2.5 feet to each one of the bedrooms. And then I'm adding 5 feet extra to the master. Okay, so 11.4 plus 2'6" is 13.10. And that'll be to the closet. Okay. So hold me over. No, just outside of the wall. We've gotten off a 1/2 inch somewhere. How did we do that? Hold me again on the square line.
.26, 11/16.
Okay, hold me on the pencil mark right here.
I bet that's where we got off. Hold me on the pencil mark here. $15.10. $15.10. Okay, we're off a 1/2 inch. My tape wasn't long enough, so we measured from the original marks that I made, but then we shifted the line a 1/2 inch, and I forgot to tell Ethan to hold me on that first mark. He held me on the line, so we got off a 1/2. All right, so we need to straighten this one up then. Take me to the control line. $13.10 1/4.
Okay. Now, where was that before? Okay, and then we got 3'4".
$3'4" over to it. $3'4".
Okay. Chalk line etiquette. That's something we can talk about. Whoever is holding the chalk line, that's who snaps the line. That way you don't have two different people trying to snap the line and it gets all messed up. So the way we always do it is whoever has the chalk line is the one who snaps the line. And usually snap the first line. If you're doing 2 lines, you'll snap the first line, and then when you go do the second line, you snap the second line twice because usually there's not enough chalk left in the chalk line. That's how we do it. Okay, that's the closet, and then should be, yep. So we marked, Angel marked where the double joists were, just so I can make sure that we hit them. Which, if we did the measurements right, which we did. And then we got a closet right in the middle, or a wall right in the middle. 5'10" outside of the center. Okay, hold me, burn 3.5 out there.
5'10" to the center. So it'll be 5'8" and a quarter, 5'11" and 3/4, 5'8" and a quarter. That hallway is, that's tight. 3'8" button wall to the center, which should line up with that garage wall. That wall should come all the way through. Okay, let's just take this one all the way through. And if the line is really long, you may need somebody to get in the middle, because when you pick it up, if the wind blows at all, it could blow that line slightly. So you have somebody to kind of hold the middle down and snap each side. What is going on with you two? I was calling one guy a turd for nothing all the time. He got really mad at me.
Why?
He's like,
Felt like
I was disrespecting him and saying he was just stupid. I was like, no, I told you you're a turd for nothing. That's
same thing.
maybe so. He got really mad at me.
I mean, if he's an idiot, he's an idiot. Oh, there he is. Good?
Yeah.
Good. Alright.
All right, get some 2x4 and cut them off at 16 foot. We'll lay a wall out real quick. My pants are falling down. You know, I like the look of the Milwaukee pants, but they're made weird. Maybe I just don't have a big enough rear end to hold them up. I need to get a bigger rear end. Get some implants. Why do you put all the material that we need first on the bottom? We started our layout from this corner, every 16 inches to the center. And so we cut our 2x4s off at 16 foot even. So now our brakes will be, we always want the joints of the plates to be on top of a stud. So now our joints will be on top of studs. So we got one at 16, 32, on down the line, 48. And then the last one will cut to length. So now, what I'll do is I'll go through and I'll mark my T's. I'll just mark where my T's are. And I put my marks on top of the plate. I mean on the side. And then, since I'm right-handed, it'd be awkward for me to go the other way. A lot of times I'll have them lay out the studs out there, but we didn't on this one. So what I do is I mark the center of the stud. So I'll go through and I'll just put one mark all the way down through here. And if you have a 2x4, a plate that's kind of bad, it's not bad enough to throw away, I put the bad part out. That way you don't see it. I put it where when that wall gets lifted up, that barked off edge will be to the outside. Okay, and then I'll go through and I'll get the whole wall laid out, and then I'll go through and I'll mark my windows and doors, etc. So, in a perfect world, we'd have, Ethan, you didn't cut these yet.
No, not those. These. These. Yeah, those.
These two?
No, not that one. This one.
Okay. What you could do is put all your plates together and lay it out that way. You can lay out a whole bunch of them at once. A bunch of different ways of doing it. And these plates are kind of ugly. I don't even have any nails on them. Little nails. What?
Man, that's bad.
Ethan, give me 2 more 16s over here. Okay, whenever we go do our tees, we're gonna have a stud right here. I like to do California tees. So whenever I do my studs, I have a stud here, here, and then I'll have one flat. So wherever the closest stud is, I want that open side to be on the other side where they can put that insulation in there. I'll show you that when we build the wall.
I guess we can get a count on that. I can start making that.
No, we do it as we go. You don't waste time doing that. Okay, this one you're gonna have a T, a stud will be right there. So I'll put the stud here, and then it'll be open on the other side. Okay, and then cut 2 to finish it out.
You want it to go over?
Yeah, 3.5 past the line. Angel, you got the plan?
Huh?
You got the plan?
Nine.
Plano?
I have to
Huh?
It's an email.
He didn't give you a paper plan?
No.
All right.
Oh, so we don't have a physical plan.
No. It is a pain doing it off the phone. The window in the kitchen, from the center of the wall to the center of the sink to the window, is 4'8". 4'8" to the center of the window.
That never told me.
Yeah, I told him. Then we got a 1'10". From the center of that one wall. Anything you're probably got to move your truck. I got the rough openings in my truck. I gotta go find those. So now we got the studs laid out, the T's laid out. I gotta get the rough openings for the windows. I'll get those marked, and then we can start nailing this wall together. The 9 foot's for the garage. I got the windows. The windows.
What kind of windows you put?
They're probably Quakers. Frenchie Schultz, they were at the thing yesterday. They're right beside K&K. Yeah, Quaker windows. They're terrible.
Are they worse than gel windows?
Yes. I like Marvin and Pello. We're kind of the top. And then the gel ones seem to be okay. I don't know about energy effectiveness or energy efficiency. But the as far as a contractor installing them, I really like installing the Andersons, the silver lines. They always just seem to go in really good. You don't have to sit there and do a bunch of adjustments on it. The Quakers, which is what we're using here, they're always a pain to set. They're real flimsy. Especially the double hungs. You'll go to set it in a hole, and if you're not careful, the sashes will just fall out. So once you get it all shimmed, it's fine. But getting it to that point, you're always having to adjust it a bunch. The Andersons seem to be just a really good solid window. Which I'm saying Anderson, I'm not sure if Anderson I'm not sure if I think the brand might have changed. I think they got bought out. The old Anderson silver lines. It's my favorite from an installer's standpoint. All right, I need the kitchen. Laundry, master, great room, kitchen. That's a big window. 72 3/4. That's really big. 72 3/4. So on the windows, I will mark those a little bit closer. I'll mark the exactly. So on this, I'm going to put 2 cripples or 2 trimmers, depending on what you call them. I call them cripples. And so I'll mark those with an O and then an X for the stud. When it's a 6 foot, when it's 6 foot, actually 5 foot, 5 foot or bigger, I go to 2 cripples, or 2 trimmers underneath the header. Everything under that, we just put a single. And if you notice, I do not have my Martinez square. Last time I saw it, Connor was using it. Empire.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't even like Empires. I like the Swansons. Not Ron Swanson. Okay, bedroom. Okay, Ethan, this one's ready to go. You just need to mark out that last bit of plate there. I got the center marked. I just got to mark the window itself. We're doing this house is for Blackburn, Cody Blackburn, and so Cody's really good to work for. You can see he's got all the backfilling done. Looks really nice right here. We've got power on the job site, which just last week we went to a job site, no power. The builder didn't tell me. I had to go back to his office, which I had just came from, to go get his generator. He's got the window measurements, which is a plus. There's lots of times we don't have these. We're trying to get them. He deals with the local lumberyard, which is nice. We don't have to go worry about the box stores. And we've got questions, he always has answers. We needed steel shims yesterday. He ran and got them. So I'd say he's a good builder. See, Ethan is checking the studs for crown. A board will typically always, it'll bend one way or the other, unless it's perfectly straight, and then you have to try to guess. But it's typically always going to have a slight, it's called a crown. So you always want that crown to be going the same direction in a wall, so that your wall's not wavy. If they're all bowing the same direction, then that wall is going to be straighter, then it's got a better chance of being straight. So we typically crown them up. That way it's sitting on the floor on both ends. If it's crowned upside down, then it could slightly rock, and it just makes it a little bit harder to nail the wall together. And so he'll crown them all up. Usually the guy that's laying the studs out, as he lays them out, he'll crown them. That way the guy that's nailing, typically you want the guy that's running the gun to never have to lay his gun down. You want that gun to just, if the gun's not firing, you're not making money. So you want that gun to just he just needs to be hammering all day long. And so, like whenever I'm on a crew, running the crew, I let the other guys nail, and my job was typically to make sure everything's laid out in front of them, make sure the plates are cut, make sure everything is neat, everything that the nail guy needs is in front of him, where he can. As the crew leader, my job is to make sure that the guys have everything that they need, all the questions I try to anticipate any questions that they might have. I try to, like we'll put our top plates on, our second top plate on the floor. Some people like to do it afterwards. I don't like doing that. I think it's silly, and so that does cause a little bit of. Whenever I do my tees, I'll leave about 1/8 of an inch gap on each side. So the guys that like to put the top plates on last, they like to butt everything up where it's just really, really tight. So that's the only downside to doing it beforehand. But that gives you, if you put 1/8 of an inch on each side, if there's a little bit of variance in your plates as you're plumbing and lining the walls, say you get your corners, each end is nice and level, maybe a T is slightly out of level, you got 1/8 of an inch, you can play with that. You could bump it one way or the other without having to cut the plate. That's how we do it there. So as the crew leader, I always want to make sure everything's laid out correctly. I want to anticipate what the guy's going to need next. So typically I would have like 2 guys working together, or maybe 1 saw man for 2 nailers. Depends on how good they are. Because the guy that's cutting, depends on how big the crew is. If you're a smaller crew, the guy that's doing the cutting, he may have to also be the guy that's carrying the studs. And so it's nice to have a guy that he kind of his job, the lowest guy on the totem pole, so to speak, is the guy that carries all the material. Because you don't want the guys that's you're paying more money to be wearing themselves out carrying the material. So you can see on this tee right here, this is what we call a California tee. That's what I call a California tee. What we're going to do is we're going to lay it in there just like that. That way they can insulate up behind it. So in this case, the tee the stud is right in the middle, is right in the tee. So I'm going to make sure the disc goes. It's going to go right there. That way, when we're putting our sheathing on, our sheathing breaks. So I'll put one stud to the outside, one stud to the inside, and then that makes our T. Some framers like to do blocks. They like to put just in the stud base, they like to put a block every 16 inches. I really don't like doing that. I like to have a solid board there to nail to, for the drywallers to nail to. There's our plan. Okay, delete that what I said about the builder and the. Maybe he did tell me this. We just ordered. We just I usually nail the header first and then measure it tight. Sometimes it can be 7/8, sometimes it's 13/16.
Finally getting sick and tired of sleeping on my own. Where I'm at is not and will never be my home. Every voice in my head is more than I can shake. Till the liquor takes over and I cannot hold my weight. There's a war on my mind over all the things I cannot fix. And it's so tired right now, I think I see the end. How I've walked so far, so long, never gaining anything.
Okay, so we nailed the blocks on the outside. So when we went to stand the wall, it didn't slide off the house. So whenever we go to pick up the wall, we don't slam it into those blocks. We kind of just pick it up and just let it. Come here, Muscles. Shoot. Ethan, come nail this. Nail it. Okay. Nail it. Okay, so now after we got the wall up, Ethan will go back through and he'll make sure the wall is on the line, and he'll nail it. 2 nails on top of every joist. Angel's getting our headers cut. He's got a bunch of our T's and cripples cut, our T's and corners cut. A lot of people do it differently. I like to do them as I go, because it seems like we always miscount T's and corners. Then we have a couple left over, and then the builder pulls up, wants to know why we got extra T's and corners. So if you are going to build up beforehand, maybe do it a little bit short, and then I can't seem to ever count right, so maybe do it a little bit short, that way you don't have extra ones. Because sometimes invariably one guy's on the other side of the house, he doesn't feel like walking over and getting one that's already been pre-made, so he'll just make another one and just keep going, and then now you have extra at the end of the house, which you can bust them apart and use them, but it's just a pain. So what you always want to do is make sure when you're nailing your walls, you nail on top of a joist. You don't want to nail in between. On an exterior wall, it's not as big of a deal because you've got a rim board out there. But on an interior wall, you don't want to nail out here in the middle in the field, because after the house is done, if somebody's walking across the floor, that OSB is going to deflect a little bit, and if there's a nail right there, it's going to pull away just slightly and it'll creak. But you'll get creaks in your house just because the framer's nailed in between the stud bays versus right on top of a joist. So we always line our studs up with our joist underneath. And around here we're 16-inch on center joist studs and floor joist, rafters as well. So it makes it pretty easy to just stack everything. But if you're on 2 foot on center on the trusses, a little bit different. But for the most part, we try to stack everything. That way you'll know when you're nailing your walls. Of course, it's pretty obvious where the joists are. You got lines, but it just makes it a lot easier when you know where everything's at. So that's what we typically do. Okay, so yesterday they got all the walls up, or most of the walls up. They're finishing this up right now. They got everything done except for they got a couple walls swapped. So I'm not saying this to pick on the guys. Well, I kind of am. I got to make fun of them for something. So part of it was whenever I was laying out, I did not mark the doors on the floor, just because in my head I was thinking, well, I'll be here. I don't have to mark it all out. So I actually laid out the walls. I laid out the doors on the walls. I had the place going where they went. But when you have this many walls right here, all in one spot, you have to move the plates out of the way to frame the walls. So therefore, when that happens, the plates gets moved. And then if the floor's not marked, and if the guys nailing if they don't go actually look at the plan, walls can get spun around. And so we had 2 walls that got spun around, so the door was on the wrong side. So the builder called me last night. It's like, hey, 2 doors the walls got flipped around. So he actually marked it with paint on the floor. So when you're framing, make sure that if you're not going to be here and the guys are going to be here working, to make sure and label everything. Make sure you mark the floor, mark where the doors are going to go, detail it out really good, so that there's no mistakes made. It's good for and it's also good to train the guys to be able to read the plan. That way, they can look for themselves. If they have a question, they can come in over here and say, okay, the door, we moved those plates out of the way. I want to make sure this wall gets spun the right way. And so therefore they would be able to see that the door goes on that side. But it's just things that happen. It's better to catch it now than later. So that's just one thing that you have to look out for as you're framing, to make sure that the communication is really clear. So they got the walls plumbed. They got them plumbed. And then they got them all straightened. So typically, these are 8-foot walls. We'll use either 10-foot or 12-foot bracing. I'll shorten it up to 10 foot. I don't like to get any shorter than that. 12 is a really good size. It gives you enough leverage to get everything straight. A 10-footer would kind of bring it back into here somewhere, which is fine, but it kind of gives you less leverage on that wall, especially if you need to move it. One thing that we do is whenever we're trying to rack a wall, we'll nail a 2x4 here, nail it to the plate really hard, nail it here really good, and then that gives you some leverage. You can push and pull that way. You got to make sure your 2x4 is not angled too much one way or the other. If it's angled too far back, as you're pushing, you'll pick that brace up. If it's angled too far that way, all you're doing is trying to shove that brace into the floor. So you want to have it straight up and down. That way, as you push, that brace is just kind of gliding along the floor. Most of the time, you're not moving it that much, but if it's a real long wall, if it's a tall wall, sometimes it takes a lot more to get that thing to move. Sometimes we'll take a 2x4 and stick it on the top plate and kind of wedge it against your hip and kind of push that way. But this way seems to be the less strenuous on your body. It doesn't take 3 guys to plumb a line. You can just do it with 2 guys. Which nowadays with lasers, used to you had to have a guy sitting there with the level, reading the level. Now you can set the laser in the corner, and everybody that's moving the wall can see how much the wall needs to move. And so that makes a huge difference. Where one guy's not, if you just need to go just a little bit, you're not shoving the wall a ½ inch and then you got to pull it back. So just having those lasers makes things so much nicer than what we used to do. So after we plumb and line the walls, we'll go through before we sheathe and we'll check and make sure all the windows are level, just to make sure that we didn't get, maybe they're 1.5 inches over, maybe they nailed it on the wrong line or something. So we just always want to make sure that all the windows and the doors are level. We always check all the T's, because I don't want to sheathe the wall and then find out a T's out of level slightly, and then we got to move it, and we can't move the actual T because now the sheathing's nailed off to it. So I like to check the T's before we sheathe, just to make sure everything is good. And then once we either set our trusses or ceiling joist rafters, we'll go back through one more time and check everything again to make sure nothing got shifted, because sometimes stuff happens. Sometimes if the guys are walking up and down the braces, maybe the brace will get pulled loose at the bottom, maybe a wall will shift a little bit. So you always want to kind of double check stuff as you go. So we're fixing to jump over to the next one and get the floor down on that one and get the walls up on that one. Trusses are coming 2 days, so we've got today and Tuesday Monday's Memorial Day.